In 1944, American researchers published findings that a single-celled algae was producing a natural antibiotic substance, effective against multiple bacterial strains in laboratory conditions. They named it chlorella. Penicillin was already in mass production for the war effort. Chlorella was filed and not developed. 4 years later, the Carnegie Institution and the Rockefeller Foundation jointly funded a research program at Stanford University to determine whether the same algae could solve world hunger. The program found it could produce 20 tons of protein per acre per year, doubling its own mass every 24 hours, requiring nothing but sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. In 1953, UNESCO published a bulletin calling it a superfood of the future with the potential to eliminate global protein deficiency. Then, in the early 1960s, one funding redirection happened. The algae disappeared from Western science. Japan kept going. Today, Japan produces 5,000 metric tons of it annually, sells it in every convenience store in the country, and has documented health claims approved by its Ministry of Health. The algae is chlorella. And the gap between what happened in Tokyo and what happened in Washington is one of the most precisely documented funding failures in the history of modern nutrition science. Think about B12 for a moment. Deficiency in vitamin B12 affects approximately 40% of adults over 50 in the United States, according to the Framingham Offspring Study. The standard intervention costs between $18 and $60 a month. Methylcobalamin tablets or injections, depending on severity. The daily recommended intake for adults is 2.4 micrograms. Dried chlorella powder contains between 100 and 200 micrograms of bioavailable methylcobalamin per 100 grams. That is the active form, not an analog, not a precursor, not a pseudovitamin. Beef delivers 2.6 micrograms per 100 grams. Beef liver, the most concentrated animal source of B12 in the human diet, delivers 83 micrograms per 100 grams. Dried chlorella exceeds even that benchmark. A 2014 study in Plant Foods for Human Nutrition confirmed that chlorella supplementation significantly raised serum B12 in lacto-ovo vegetarians, demonstrating unambiguous bioavailability. The supplement industry charges you $18 a month for what this algae delivers in a single tablespoon. And the reason you are not already aware of this comparison is a story that starts not with the science, but with a series of institutional funding decisions made between 1944 and 1965. Martinus Beijerinck, a Dutch microbiologist, first identified and described Chlorella vulgaris in 1890. The name comes from the Greek for green and the Latin diminutive for small. It is not small in any nutritional sense. Otto Heinrich Warburg, the Nobel laureate who mapped the metabolic basis of cancer and whose name the Warburg effect still carries, studied chlorella's photosynthetic efficiency in his Berlin laboratory in the 1920s and documented its capacity to convert sunlight to biomass at approximately 10 times the efficiency of conventional land crops. The scientific literature on chlorella's exceptional properties predates the Second World War. Then came 1944. Researchers Pratt, Juanito, and Pratt published their characterization of chlorella, the antibiotic compound naturally secreted by chlorella, demonstrating activity against both gram-positive organisms, including Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes, and several gram-negative bacterial species. The timing was catastrophic for the research. Penicillin mass production, organized under a U.S. government wartime contract, was already operational. The pharmaceutical industry had structured itself around the penicillin model: synthetic or semi-synthetic compounds, patentable derivatives, scalable fermentation chemistry. Chlorella was natural, structurally complex, unpatentable, and required large-scale algae cultivation infrastructure that no pharmaceutical company had built. It was documented in the journal record and left there. By 1948, and the Carnegie Institution and Rockefeller Foundation had pivoted from the antibiotic angle to the food security angle, commissioning the Stanford program. The findings over the following decade were consistent. Chlorella's protein yield per acre exceeded every conventional crop by a significant margin. Its amino acid profile was complete, and its cultivation requirements were minimal. The 1953 UNESCO Bulletin was not a fringe publication. It represented the consensus of some of the most credentialed nutrition scientists on Earth. A parallel research program in Japan, partly informed by the American findings, produced the commercial chlorella industry. Chlorella Industry Company was incorporated in Tokyo in 1964. Then the Rockefeller Foundation made its strategic decision. Its leadership concluded that Norman Borlaug's high-yield wheat and rice varieties, fertilizer-dependent, hybridized, descalable through existing agricultural infrastructure, could address the immediate famine risk faster than algae cultivation technology, which required entirely new production systems. Borlaug's program worked. It saved approximately 1 billion lives and earned him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970. It also locked the global food system into dependency on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer produced from natural gas and on agrochemical inputs that were commercially controlled. The chlorella program was not handed to another funder. It was not paused with a return date. It was discontinued. The Japan file and the America file diverged permanently at that moment. Japan continued. Western science treated the discontinuation as a conclusion. Now look at the 7 documented compounds. Methylcobalamin, genuine B12, is the first, with bioavailability confirmed in human trials. The second is the chlorella growth factor, a water-soluble nucleotide peptide complex unique to young, rapidly dividing chlorella cells. A 2003 study in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that CGF supplementation significantly elevated natural killer cell cytotoxicity in healthy adult subjects over 8 weeks. This is measurable immune activation from a whole food compound that Western pharmaceutical R&D has never attempted to develop into a drug application. The third compound is sporopollenin, the structural polymer forming chlorella's cell wall. It functions as a biological chelating agent, binding heavy metals including lead, cadmium, and mercury in the gastrointestinal tract, and facilitating their excretion before systemic absorption. A 2009 study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry confirmed statistically significant reduction in blood mercury levels among pregnant women in Japan following chlorella supplementation. A finding with direct public health implications that has generated zero FDA response. The fourth is chlorelin, documented in 1944. Confirmed against multiple bacterial strains, never taken past laboratory characterization. The fifth is beta-1,3-glucan, a structural polysaccharide with documented macrophage and dendritic cell activation effects and consistent LDL cholesterol reduction across a meta-analysis of beta-glucan studies published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2008. The sixth is the carotenoid pair lutein and zeaxanthin, present in chlorella at concentrations comparable to egg yolk, associated with macular degeneration prevention in the age-related eye disease study 2. The seventh is chlorophyllin, the water-soluble chlorophyll derivative, which featured in a Phase 2 human clinical trial published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2001, demonstrating significant reduction in aflatoxin-induced DNA adduct formation in a human population. 7 compounds. 1 organism. 0 Western drug applications. 0 FDA-approved health claims. 0 federally funded follow-up on any of the 7. Follow the financial architecture forward from 1944. The US B12 supplement market generates approximately $300 million in annual sales. The global market for vitamin B12 injections and oral methylcobalamin supplements combined exceeds $1 billion annually. Those markets were built and grew to their current scale during the same decades that a whole food B12 source with documented bioavailability was sitting in a supplement category that prohibited health claims. The global antibiotic market generates $45 billion per year. Chlorelin has never been characterized beyond a 1944 journal paper, while semi-synthetic antibiotic derivatives of compounds far less potent have generated decades of pharmaceutical revenue. The heavy metal chelation therapy market in the United States charges $200 to $300 per intravenous session, with treatment courses running to dozens of sessions. Sporopollenin achieves comparable heavy metal binding through dietary intake. The infrastructure of each of these pharmaceutical markets grew during the period of chlorella's burial. The markets did not cause the burial, but they profited from it every single year it continued. Before anything practical, this is educational information only. It is not medical, nutritional, or agricultural advice. Nothing in this video is a health claim. Chlorella is not a treatment for any disease. Always consult your physician before adding any supplement to your regimen, especially if you take blood-thinning medications, are pregnant, or are breastfeeding. With that established, chlorella is legal to purchase and consume in all 50 U.S. states. The FDA grants it GRAS status for food use. It is sold as tablets, powder, capsules, and liquid extract at health food stores and mainstream retailers nationwide. One purchasing decision matters above every other. Buy only from suppliers who publish third-party laboratory certificates for heavy metals, microbial contamination, and pesticides. Chlorella's biological efficiency at absorbing environmental compounds, the same mechanism behind its heavy metal chelation properties, means poorly grown chlorella can concentrate contaminants just as effectively. Japanese and Taiwanese manufacturers with established quality control protocols are the most reliable sources. Second, purchase only broken cell wall chlorella. Chlorella's outer cell wall is mechanically hard enough to pass through the digestive system largely intact if unprocessed. Broken cell wall formulations, processed by pressure, sound waves, or grinding, release the internal contents for normal absorption. This is not a marketing distinction. It is a bioavailability distinction. Start at 1 to 2 grams daily for 2 weeks, allowing your digestive system to adjust. Standard supplemental use ranges from 3 to 5 grams daily. Pull the frame back and see the complete architecture. A natural antibiotic was documented in 1944 and not developed because a competing antibiotic had already won the wartime contract. A food security program funded by 2 of the world's most powerful scientific institutions was discontinued in the 1960s, not because it failed, but because another program was faster. The regulatory system classified the organism as a supplement rather than a food, meaning that any company wishing to make a health claim about any of its 7 compounds must complete a $2.6 billion drug development program with no patent protection and therefore no commercial return. Japan made a different regulatory decision. Japan has Ministry of Health approved claims. Japan has 5,000 metric tons of annual production. Japan sells chlorella in every convenience store. The difference between what happened in those 2 regulatory systems is not a difference in science. It is a difference in the classification decision made in the 1960s. And that classification decision has been generating $300 million a year in B12 supplement sales, $45 billion in antibiotic revenue, and $200 to $300 per chelation session ever since. Share this video with anyone who buys B12 supplements monthly, anyone who has been prescribed antibiotics for a condition that responds to gram-positive organisms, and anyone who has been quoted several $1,000s for a heavy metal chelation course. Not to replace those interventions. This channel does not make treatment recommendations, and this video makes no health claims. But so they carry the full history of a single-celled organism that earned Carnegie Institute funding, Rockefeller Foundation backing, and UNESCO's designation as a superfood of the future, and still ended up as an afterthought on the bottom shelf of a health food store in the West, while Japan built a national food industry out of it. Subscribe. Next week, this channel opens the vault on a tropical tree whose leaf compounds were logged in the NCI's cancer screening database in 1976, confirmed by a Purdue University team in 1997 to be 10,000 times more potent than doxorubicin against specific cancer cell lines in laboratory conditions, and still have no completed human clinical trial on record. Same funding gap, different organism, same outcome for the people who needed the research done. The information in this video is for educational and historical purposes only. It is not medical, nutritional, agricultural, or legal advice. Nothing presented constitutes a health claim or a recommendation to substitute any supplement for prescribed medical treatment. Always consult qualified medical professionals before making any dietary decisions. Chlorella supplementation carries documented interactions with anticoagulant medications. Do not use without physician guidance if you take blood thinners or have any underlying health condition.